So Brad Washa, Assistant Professor of Wildland Fire Science with Utah State University Extension and part of the Quinney College of Agriculture and Natural Resources. Today we're looking at what's called the wildland-urban interface, sometimes commonly referred to just as WUI or built communities. And when you build in the wildland-urban interface, we need to realize first of all that we are building in fire-dependent ecosystems. These ecosystems have evolved in part because of fire, and we're building in those areas. So with that, knowing that, we have kind of a shared responsibility in doing practices around our home that will better protect it in the event of a wildfire. And that starts from the beginning as far as developing a community to building your own home yourself. So how you construct your house and how you look at the fuels around that structure. And that can even occur even after the house is built, and what we call home hardening. So today we're going to look at a home in the Park City area that is within the wildland urban interface, and they've done a number of measures as far as trying to make that home defensible in the event of a wildfire. Three zones that we look at when we look at what we call home ignition zone. And that first zone is the immediate zone. So it's within the first 5 feet of the structure. And that's looking at, we almost like to call that the lean, clean, and green zone, where you don't have vegetation growing, or if you do have vegetation, it's irrigated. So in this case, this house, first of all, you look at what materials are built out of the house. This has a fire-resistant, cement-based material that the house is constructed of. Then you look at immediately around the home. It's got nice gravel around the home, within 5 feet of the house. It's got a little bit of vegetation growing, but it's not like if an ember were to fall into that vegetation, that would be a concern. We also look at the top of the structure in the eaves, and we don't see any vents on this home. So that's a really great feature to have as far as nothing that an ember is going to get into. This home does have triple pane glass, so that's also a little bit of a benefit to if a fire were to occur in this area. So that immediate zone, it does extend, in this case, onto their patio. On their patio, they don't have a lot of materials that are flammable. You don't see a pile of wood or that sort of thing. So that's a really good plus. The deck is made out of concrete, so that's non-flammable. A lot of times we'll see wooden decks, and there's special precautions you need to take if you do have a wooden deck in screening underneath so that embers wouldn't land below the wooden deck and potentially ignite that wooden deck on fire. And when we extend then from that immediate zone, looking here, we do see, maybe where they could trim back this tree a little bit, because again, that immediate zone is 0 to 5 feet. So then the next zone is the intermediate zone, and that extends from 5 feet to 30 feet. So they have done a couple good things. In this case, they've limbed up this tree or removed the ladder fuel. So if fire was to start on the surface, it would be harder for fire to reach the crown of the tree and start the tree on fire, which would be a major concern. They've also really done a nice job allowing aspen trees to grow around the property. And aspen is what we call a shaded fuel break, and that can be very effective as far as reducing the risk of fire. So we're in the intermediate zone, and we can see that they've got kind of a natural garden that they do irrigate. You'd want to make sure that you do water this throughout the fire season, because in August you don't want this grass to all cure out and then be combustible. And again, that intermediate zone is 5 feet to 30 feet. Then they also, on the edges of the intermediate zone, we do have aspen growing, and that's nice. And then that goes into the extended zone, and that extended zone is 30 feet to 100 feet, and that can even be extended. If you're on a hilltop or on a steep slope, that can be extended to 200 feet. So again, that extended zone, that 30 to 100 feet, you don't want concentrations of vegetation, and you want to go in and limb up your conifers like they've done here. They've also removed a number of conifers in this area to just open up the stand, and in this case we're seeing the aspen promoted very well. It also, unlike the mixed conifer, the evergreen trees, those evergreens have resins in them that make them more volatile from fires. So we do like to, at least around the home ignition zone, minimize our use of planting with mixed conifer. And a lot of people like to use Colorado blue spruce, and unless it's irrigated, it's not the preferred tree to be, in that immediate area adjacent to your house. Again, we're in that intermediate zone, and they have aspen growing. Aspen, again, is we call it a shaded fuel break, so it can be effective at reducing fire when it comes through an area. The one thing about aspen, though, is it can be kind of a messy tree. If you plant an aspen, it'll want to sucker up, and you'll get small regeneration occurring that you can either cut out or leave in place. It makes for a nice natural feeling. They do have a white fir and looks like a green spruce also in this area. And you can have an occasional spruce tree just to mix things up a little bit, but you don't want a lot of that mixed conifer. Looking at, again, the immediate zone and the construction of the building, a couple things. Again, they're using siding that is fire resistant. They also have weather stripping. I'm sure their reason for the weather stripping is because it gets cold up here and try to reduce cold air going into the garage. But there's weather stripping also in the event of a wildfire, and the number one cause of home ignition in a wildfire is actually embers coming in. This is going to keep embers from going into the garage and between that space that otherwise would be found next to the garage door and the surface of the house itself. So within the extended zone, again, that's 30 feet to 100 and can be even up to 200 feet if you're on a steep slope or on the top of a ridge line. That area, sometimes you don't have full control over that because a lot of people don't have 100 feet of property between their home and even perhaps the next home. But in this case, their extended zone, they've removed some of the conifers. What conifers that do exist, the larger ones, they've limbed up, and they're also allowing the aspen to come in and replace some of that conifer. This area actually a couple years ago had a major bug kill in the white fir. We had a fir engraver beetle that came in and decimated a lot of our white spruce. And the HOA has open space adjacent to this property, and they removed a lot of those dead trees. They cut them down, thinned out those dead trees, piled them, and then burnt those piles. One thing in the immediate zone we talk about is what's called home hardening. That can be both when you're constructing the home and deciding on materials, or you can go back after the fact and do certain measures. In this case, when this home was built, again, they used fire-resistant, fibrous, cement-based product. And then you can see they also use corrugated aluminum, and that's also an excellent product to utilize. One thing with the corrugated aluminum, or if you have metal roofs, you need to look out at the bottom, is embers could get in to those places and get up into the structure itself. There are numerous sources of information on reducing your risk to wildfire. Many local fire departments, the Utah Division of Forestry, Fire and State Lands, and county fire wardens can conduct home assessments to help you better understand what you can do to better protect your home. Please see these links found in the video description for additional information from the National Interagency Fire Center, the National Fire Protection Association, and Utah State University Extension on Firewise Landscaping in Utah and the home ignition zone.